The morning sun cast warm shadows across downtown Portland as 26-year-old Emma Martinez wiped down the counter of her food truck. Sunrise Bites! Her blonde hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her sunflower print apron was already showing the signs of the busy breakfast rush. At this hour, the financial district was alive with professionals grabbing coffee and breakfast sandwiches before disappearing into their glass towers. Emma had been running Sunrise Bites for 8 months now. Ever since she had scraped together enough money to buy the used truck from a retiring vendor. Every dollar mattered, every customer counted, and she had learned to work efficiently through the morning rush without much time for small talk. The lunch crowd was different. Slower, more conversational, filled with people who had time to appreciate her carefully crafted sandwiches and homemade soups. But breakfast was all about speed and efficiency, getting busy professionals caffeinated and fed before their important meetings, which is why she barely looked up when the next customer approached her window. She could see expensive shoes and a tailored navy suit from her peripheral vision, just another executive needing his morning fuel. "Good morning, what can I get you?" Emma said automatically, already reaching for a coffee cup. "I'll take a coffee black, and one of those breakfast burritos," came the reply in a voice that was somehow familiar but not immediately placeable. Emma moved through the motions of preparing his order with practiced efficiency, her attention focused on the grill and coffee machine rather than the customer. The financial district attracted hundreds of similar-looking professionals every day, and she had learned not to spend mental energy trying to remember faces that would blend together anyway. "That'll be $8.50, she said, handing the coffee and wrapped burrito through the window while already looking toward the next customer in line. The man placed a $10 bill on the counter but didn't immediately take his change. "Keep it," he said quietly. "And Emma?" Something in the way he said her name made her finally look up, really look, at the customer she had been serving with such automatic efficiency. Her breath caught as recognition dawned, and she found herself staring into the warm brown eyes of someone she had never expected to see again. "Still remember me?" he asked with a gentle smile that transported her instantly back to a different time and place. "David," she whispered, feeling like the ground had shifted beneath her feet. David Chen looked exactly as she remembered, but more polished somehow. The same kind eyes, the same warm smile, but now wearing the confident bearing of someone who had found his place in the world. At 32, David had built Chen Digital Marketing from a college startup into one of the most successful agencies on the West Coast. But standing at Emma's food truck window, he looked like the same person who had once shared late-night study sessions and dreams of changing the world. "I can't believe it's really you," Emma said, momentarily forgetting about the line of customers behind him. "What are you doing here?" "I work about 3 blocks away," David replied, gesturing toward one of the gleaming office towers. "I've been walking past your truck for weeks, but I could never tell if it was really you until today when you looked up." Emma felt heat rise in her cheeks as she realized he had been a regular customer that she had barely acknowledged, treating him like just another faceless professional in the morning rush. "David, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. The breakfast crowd is always so hectic and I barely have time to—" "Don't apologize," David interrupted gently. "You were focused on your work, building your business. I remember how determined you always were when you set your mind to something." The line of customers behind David was growing restless, and Emma could feel their impatience even without looking. "Listen, I have to keep serving, but I understand," David said, picking up his coffee and burrito. "But Emma, could we talk sometime?" "Really talk? I'd love to catch up and hear about everything you've been doing." "I'd like that," Emma admitted, her heart beating faster than the morning rush usually warranted. "I'll come back for lunch," David promised, "when you have more time." As he walked away, Emma found herself watching his retreating figure with a mixture of emotions she couldn't quite sort out. David Chen had been her closest friend in college, her study partner, and for one brief, intense semester, something more than that. But life had pulled them in different directions after graduation, and they had lost touch in the way that people do when distance and time make staying connected feel impossible. The rest of the morning passed in a blur as Emma found herself distracted by memories she had carefully packed away years ago. David had been studying business while she pursued her culinary arts degree, both of them full of ambitious plans and dreams that seemed so achievable when shared over coffee in the campus library. Their romantic relationship had lasted only 4 months, ending not because of any dramatic conflict, but because of timing and circumstances that felt insurmountable at 21. David had received an internship offer in San Francisco, while Emma had committed to a culinary program in New York. They had tried to maintain their friendship long distance, but eventually the calls became less frequent, the texts more sporadic, until they became part of each other's past rather than present. Now, 8 years later, Emma found herself wondering what might have been different if they had tried harder to stay connected, if they had been more willing to fight for what they had shared. At noon, David returned as promised, this time approaching the truck when the lunch crowd was lighter and Emma had time to actually focus on her customers as individuals rather than orders to be filled. "Hi again," he said, his smile carrying the same warmth she remembered from their college days. "Hi yourself," Emma replied, feeling more like her authentic self now that she wasn't rushing through the breakfast chaos. "What can I make for you? And this time I promise to actually pay attention to who I'm serving." "Surprise me," David said. "I trust your judgment completely." Emma decided to prepare one of her signature sandwiches, grilled chicken with avocado, sun-dried tomatoes, and a homemade herb aioli on fresh sourdough. As she worked, they talked easily, falling back into the comfortable conversation style that had made their friendship so special years ago. "So tell me about Sunrise Bites," David said, leaning against the counter. "How did you end up here?" Emma's expression grew more serious as she shared the condensed version of her journey. Culinary school in New York. Working in several high-end restaurants where the pressure was intense and the hours brutal. Eventually realizing that her dream wasn't about impressing food critics or earning Michelin stars, but about creating food that brought comfort and joy to people's everyday lives. "The truck lets me do that," she explained, handing him the carefully crafted sandwich. "I get to be part of people's daily routines, create something that makes their day a little better. It's not glamorous, but it's mine." David took a bite of the sandwich and his eyes widened with genuine appreciation. "Emma, this is incredible. The flavors, the textures, everything is perfectly balanced. You've found your calling. What about you?" Emma asked, pleased by his reaction, but also curious about the path that had led him to wearing expensive suits and working in downtown office towers. "Last I heard, you were heading to San Francisco for that internship." David's expression grew thoughtful as he shared his own journey. The internship that had taught him about the business side of marketing, starting his own agency with 2 college friends, the early years of 18-hour days and ramen noodle dinners, and eventually building something successful enough to employ 30 people and serve clients across the country. "But you know what's funny?" David said, finishing the last bite of his sandwich. "I spend most of my time now helping other people tell their stories, market their dreams, and I love the strategy and creativity of it. But I miss the personal connection, the immediate feedback of creating something that directly improves someone's day." Emma understood exactly what he meant. The difference between building something because it's successful and building something because it matters to you. "Exactly," David said, and Emma felt the familiar spark of intellectual connection that had drawn them together in college. "You've managed to build something that's both successful and personally meaningful." They talked for another 20 minutes, until Emma's afternoon rush began and David reluctantly had to return to his office. But before he left, he made a request that surprised them both. "Emma, would you be interested in catering a small office event? Nothing fancy, just lunch for about 15 people. But I'd love to give my team the chance to experience food that's made with this level of care and creativity." Emma felt a flutter of excitement at the opportunity. Catering jobs were lucrative and could help her build the business beyond just daily truck sales. "That sounds wonderful. When were you thinking? Next Friday? I could come by tomorrow with more details." "It's a date," Emma said, then immediately felt her cheeks flush at the unintended implication of her words. David smiled, and Emma could see in his expression that he had caught the double meaning too. "Yes," he said quietly. "It is." Over the next week, as they planned the catering menu and logistics, Emma and David found themselves slipping back into the easy intimacy that had characterized their college relationship. But now it was deeper, informed by years of experience and personal growth that had made them both more sure of what they wanted from life. The catering event was a tremendous success. David's team was impressed not only by the quality of Emma's food, but by her professionalism and creativity. Several of them asked for her business card, interested in booking her for their own events. But the real success was the way David looked at her as she packed up her supplies. Pride and admiration clear in his expression. "Emma, that was amazing," he said, helping her carry containers to her truck. "My team hasn't stopped talking about how delicious everything was." "Thank you for giving me the opportunity," Emma replied. "It felt really good to stretch my creative muscles on a larger scale." They stood by her truck as the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the parking lot, both of them aware that this moment felt like a turning point. "Emma, can I ask you something?" David said, his tone more serious than their recent conversations had been. "Of course. Do you ever think about what might have happened if we had stayed in touch after college? If we had tried harder to make things work despite the distance?" Emma felt her heart skip at his directness. "I think about it more than I probably should," she admitted. "Especially now, seeing who you've become, seeing how you've built something meaningful with your work." "I've thought about you constantly over the years," David said quietly. "Wondered where you were, whether you were happy, whether you had found someone who appreciated how special you are." "And did I find someone?" Emma asked, though something in her tone suggested she already knew David had observed her working alone. Living alone, building her business as a single person pursuing her dreams. "I don't think so," David said gently, "and neither have I. Not really. I've dated, had relationships that looked good on paper, but nothing that felt like what we had." Emma looked at this man who had been her closest friend, her first real love, and who had unexpectedly walked back into her life through the window of her food truck. "So what do we do with that information?" "We see if what we had then can become something even better now," David said, reaching out to take her hand. "Two people who've figured out who they are and what they want, rather than two kids trying to navigate an uncertain future." Emma felt the rightness of his touch, the way her hand fit perfectly in his, just as it had 8 years ago. "I'd like that. But David, I need you to know that this," she gestured toward her truck, "this isn't just a phase or a stepping stone to something else. This is my dream, my career, my passion." "I know," David said seriously, "and I wouldn't want you to change it. But maybe there's room in your dream for a partner who understands what you're building and wants to support it." 6 months later, Emma's food truck was parked outside the grand opening of David's new office space, serving lunch to the crowd of clients, employees, and friends who had come to celebrate Chen Digital Marketing's expansion. David had specifically requested that the event be catered by Sunrise Bites, not just because Emma was now his girlfriend, but because her food represented the same values of quality, authenticity, and personal connection that he wanted his business to embody. "You know," Emma said, as they watched people enjoy her signature sandwiches while networking in David's beautiful new space, "I never imagined that ignoring a customer could lead to this." David laughed, wrapping his arm around her waist. "You didn't ignore me. You were focused on excellence, which is one of the things I've always loved about you. You just needed the right moment to look up and see who was standing there waiting for you." Emma smiled, thinking about how dramatically her life had changed since that morning when she had served coffee and a breakfast burrito to just another customer in an expensive suit. Sometimes the most important reunions happen in the most ordinary moments, when we're too busy building our dreams to notice that the person we've been missing has been right there all along. "Still remember me?" had become their private joke, David's way of getting Emma's attention when she was absorbed in work, and Emma's reminder that some connections are too strong to be broken by time or distance or the simple oversight of not looking up at the right moment. If this story warmed your heart and reminded you that Sometimes second chances come disguised as ordinary moments. Please give it a like and share it with someone who believes in the power of authentic connections. Subscribe for more stories about love, dreams, and the beautiful intersections between building our careers and finding our people. And let us know in the comments about a time when someone from your past unexpectedly reappeared in your life. Sometimes the most important customers are the ones we almost overlook.